which I think can enable a mass adoption of Web3 technology. And this is, for those of you who know, been our kind of holy grail. We've been talking about this for many, many years, and many dedicated people have been working, trying to achieve this kind of thing, and it's proved elusive. And when Mel called me and told me about POWERCHAIN, I was like, okay, wow, this is how we can get there. And shortly after that, I had this epiphany, and I'll just share this with you very quickly, that, you know, for many years, 40 years in my case, I've been basically, you could say, by analogy, trying, it's not a perfect analogy, but let's just say, trying to tell people that they should eat vegetarian because it's healthier, less animal cruelty, and so they should just eat vegetarian as a matter of principle. However, of course, it doesn't always taste quite as good or the same, and you know, it's not available everywhere, and this, that, and the other. Well, it's a very hard road to hoe. You know, that's not a fun way to spend 40 years. Because it never really catches on big time. You know you're right, but most people don't make their decisions based on this all the time. And now there's a technological phase change, like, you know, ice to water. And it's just happening in the last few months. There's some technological breakthroughs, including the emergence of AI, but also on Web3 technology. And I think what you're hearing about here is a part of it. And I've got three other examples that I can show you very briefly, which I've been pursuing. And with these new technologies, apart from the AI, put a pin in that for a moment, we've been able to, let's say by analogy, create the molecules to make food that tastes exactly like non-vegetarian food, but there's no animals involved. In fact, we can make the food taste better. We can customize it to your personal tastes. And it's still vegetarian, and it's still way better for you. But that's not why you're going to eat it. You're going to eat it because it tastes better. And it's so great. However, it saves you money. But the menus are very complicated. You know, there's so many options to customize it to your tastes and so on. It's kind of hard for a human to keep track of all this. And so that's where AI comes in. We could use AI to help us order from these new menus, optimally for us. So that's the way I see these technology breakthroughs. They are in a direction we've been pursuing for a long time, but all of a sudden, we've broken through, and now we're able to actually create products that are as good and superior, but it's just as easy to order from the menu because you do it through AI. And we can do this in these three main areas of information technology: infrastructure, money or payments, communication, and identity. And these are the key areas, and this will enable a whole bunch of new stuff to flourish. If I can just take a few minutes and tell you my personal story, Mel says it's okay. I had this idea 40 plus years ago. It just came to me. I was a graduate student at Berkeley, before the web, before anything, and I realized the future was going to be fully digital, and everyone was going to be immersed in a digital experience. And that was going to be very fundamental, major aspect of everyone's lives. But there were really two ways that world could be. Essentially, what I was thinking was the Web 2 way, where everything's controlled centrally, or the Web 3 way, where you, as a person, have secret keys that empower you to participate in this new informational world. And I realized that one would lead to a very dismal future, and the other would allow human beings to reach their potential, even in their interaction with computers and AI. So I figured out how to do this stuff a little bit, and I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Blind signatures for electronic money and mixing. And just about this time, the National Security Agency of the United States government got a new director. And the first thing he said was, anybody who would organize a conference on cryptography, they were going to throw the whole book at them. The whole force of the federal government would come down on them. And cryptography was like nuclear secrets, born classified. It didn't matter where you got the idea, it belonged to the government and you couldn't tell anybody. And I thought, wait a minute, cryptography is going to be the thing that's going to determine how the world is going to, how society is going to unfold, and whether we can really move towards a sort of machines of loving grace world, or pick your favorite dystopia. So, as being a graduate student at Berkeley, what do you think I did? Any guesses? I organized a conference on cryptography, and I invited all the people in the field to come, and we started the best, the only real professional association. We have like 3 conferences a year now. The government did put me in jail. I set cryptography free. I risked spending the rest of my life in jail, but it turned out that I had time to work on these ideas further, and they were invited to Scientific America and Industrial Computer Science, and then I took matters into my own hand and created the DigiCash company, and I convinced Deutsche Bank to issue eCash and Deutschmarks, which they did, and we had eCash and Cyberbucks, our own cryptocurrency, and there was a privacy protected digital currency. And more recently, that's the blind signature part, and then the mixing part is now I've founded XX Network. And I'm going to blast through these very quickly, but so this is the second epiphany that I was sharing with you. We're at this point now where we can really create this new world very competitively, disruptively, and we can stick with the, principles. It's such a wonderful thing working in the blockchain space, right? Because everyone believes, or most people, very strongly in these underlying principles, which are extremely important, and that's what I've been doing for the last 40 years. So let me, without going into all my favorite infrastructure, let me talk about the communication infrastructure real briefly, because I think later you'll see that this will relate strongly to POWERCHAIN. And so this is, today my mobile phone might have, let's say, poor access right here, but yours might have really good access because you're on a different carrier. You subscribe to a different service. That's not great. No one wants that. Everyone wants the best service wherever they are. And so why would I want to pay for being locked into this one plan when I could always opportunistically have the best access and the best performance? Well, the infrastructure for the telephony has been built deliberately to be based on this subscription model. And I know the people who built it. I was there in the early days, and and so on. And there's a chip in the phones that sends out these IMSI identifier codes every single time it gets powered up. And this is supposed to protect the network from people who would extract too much bandwidth and interfere with other people's use of it, and create this business model that a lot of people have made a lot of money off of. Well, there's a different way to do it, which is far better from a national security point of view. How many people heard the story that you could see who all the CIA agents were from public data, because you could see who was going to their headquarters using the mobile phone public tracking data? And then you could see which countries they went to, and which teams, and when they came back, and what exactly. I don't know why they didn't just close the whole agency after that. But anyways, you know, it's not good for national security to have a system that also, if you break into those chips, you could do a DDoS over the whole national telephone system, and this would be extremely disruptive, as we now know. So, not good. What we want is a pay-as-you-go system that's based on real fundamental security, but then also, you know, there's another really obsolete infrastructural concept, which is that each person or each phone has a single phone number. And that's kind of baked in. And that's not very convenient. That's not what I want. If I give a number to someone, a hotel or whatever, they may need to reach me one day, but after that, I don't want to hear from them. You know, people are reluctant to exchange their contact information because it has this universal characteristic. You want to have a lot of phone numbers. That's natural. You should be able to create as many as you want. Okay, well, but how can you manage all this? That's been the fundamental problem of real adoption of the advantages of Web3 and information technology. So let me just, I don't want to burn up too much airtime here, but if you just, so I didn't put the government column there, but if you think about it, who of you would not want a cheaper phone service that gives you better access at all times? Raise your hand. You're loyal to your own provider, you just wouldn't want better stuff cheaper? Okay, not likely. I think they raised their hand at those 5 people at the wrong, or maybe they work for a mobile phone operator. But I've spoken with the CEOs of, I've negotiated with CEOs of a few mobile phone operators, and they tell me this, we call it privacy, this technology is the future for sure. Because the public wants privacy too, but they're not really willing to pay for it. This is the whole thing, and they can't really administer it because it's too complex. So, you know, I was at a trade show once, and I learned something really fundamental, which I'd like to share with you. Never bet against the advance of technology. Okay? That's a very important principle. So, what I'm saying here is, what we need is a business argument that makes sense in the face of rising AI, improving AI. And this does, because people become more concerned about their privacy as AI becomes more prevalent, and they will, be directed towards the best consumer products to use very expeditiously. So you won't take years and years for something like POWERCHAIN, which is better, to succeed. You Google, what's the best, Web3 platform? POWERCHAIN, the AI will tell you immediately. You don't have to pay millions of dollars to get, for search engine optimization and all that, because it'll see through all this and figure it out. So marketing is kind of, you say SOL. But so these are all good things for what I say, but the really important thing is, how many people have heard of Phil Zimmerman at PGP? Okay, well I know Phil, I've known him since the early days, and I once contacted him and said, hey Phil, let's use PGP, and he said, oh David, I'm sorry, I don't really use it, it's too hard to use. Okay, it's the whole story of all this stuff. If you want to have a limited number of phone numbers, how are you going to manage that? You keep track of who can call when and what and who it really is calling you and disconnect those and so forth and so on. So here's where AI really comes in. It can help us manage all of these knobs and levers to maximize our privacy and our benefits and for using all these technologies. That's what's been missing in the adoption of the really best technology. That's why people have opted for these sort of canned, simplified solutions and they never touch the configuration settings. So anyway, so this is why I would say something, and I should also point out that this technology for turning mobile telephony around is based on the eCache and the mixing. And we at the XX network that I founded provide the mixing. And there's special kinds of mixing that's needed for this, and new kinds. There's an eCache breakthrough that allows this, we call it private key technology. Okay, and it turns out that there's something called better than money, and I'm not going to talk about it, but I would have, if you have a chance. Go to my website, Chaum.com, and read about better than money. You'll be glad you did. We can give consumer credit to 3.5 billion people who don't have consumer credit today, and reduce the wealth gap, and it's a very attractive approach, and when you compare it, once again, it's so much better for everyone. They can make money and save more money and get credit and so forth. So that's pretty exciting. And then I'll just say about the third aspect, so that I mentioned in the title, identity infrastructure. How many people heard about WorldCoin? Yeah. How many people wanted them to scan their iris? And not too many did.
Never.
So people were pissed off, I guess you could say. I don't know if you could say that in the Emirates, but I was really mad too when I saw this, and but unlike Vitalik, who said, well, we'll just have to accept it, it's terrible, but there's nothing else that can work. I don't know if you read his 20-page essay on it. I said, let me think about it for 5 minutes. I found a solution. So it's a 45-year-old open problem. Since the FBI started scanning fingerprints, in the 70s, I believe, whenever you have a biometric system, that biometric scan data is very sensitive data. If that leaks out, it's worse than any other kind of personally identifiable information. It also contains genetic information. It's a big problem. There's 1.2 billion scans of irises and fingerprints that are in a database in India. That's a lot of people. If that leaked, you probably couldn't use these systems in the future. I mean, it's a huge vulnerability to have this data. So what you want to do, is encrypt it at the moment of capture with strong encryption, very strong encryption, and never have to decrypt it, but be able to compare it to the database of similarly encrypted captures, and find out if it's in there or not, and if it is, you can insert it. That's the open problem, which I solved, and I did a little extra credit because I made it so that you cannot make that test or insert things into the database unless you have the cooperation of a majority of a Byzantine consensus of a set of network nodes. So this gives a really decentralized control over that information. So that's, excuse me, that is the Zanzibar technology. And you can see the WorldCoin gave us some money to build it and demo it, and hopefully you'll be hearing more about Zanzibar. So I want to thank everyone here at POWERCHAIN for the great work they've done, and this is really fundamental. I think this is an inflection point in the history of Web3. We have to all pull together and make it happen. So thanks very much for having me here. I'm really excited.
Can we ask questions?
I think I've burned up too much time already, but